Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Horror Mine. My name is Vic Shy, and this is the Scare Score, where I break down horror movies and rate them on how scary I think they are. In this episode, I'll be going over the 2008 Thai horror film, Coming Soon. I'll be going over the events that take place throughout the film while breaking down each scare scene and rating them on how scary they are or attempt to be. Coming Soon has a very interesting premise about literally bringing horror movies to life. But how scary is it? Sit back and relax and join me as we explore Coming Soon and tally up the Scare Score. Our movie begins with an opening credit sequence fitting for a movie that came out in the 2000s. Creepy piano music combined with generic dramatic music with visuals that tie into the movie's theme of, well, movies. A little girl opens her eyes and looks up directly at a ceiling fan followed by a jump scare. The boy next to her is dead and she had better find a place to hide if she doesn't want to end up next. She hides in the least obvious place in the room, the closet. A terrifying woman walks in holding a rusty blade. She has burn scars all over her body and drags her left foot as she walks. This lady has definitely been through some things. The little girl refuses to be a victim and jumps out of the closet on top of her. The lady grabs a hold of her leg, but she stabs herself in the hand and the little girl manages to run out. She doesn't get very far though, as she is dragged back into the house in typical horror movie fashion. The girl wakes up tied to a chair surrounded by other children who can't see like the rest of us anymore. The crazed woman is creepily brushing her hair that is almost non-existent at this point. The kidnapped children's parents walk into the house looking for the crazed woman named Chaba. One of the dads finds Chaba's secret door thanks to the footprint/drag mark leading behind the closet. They bust into the room like SEAL Team 6 but are too late in preventing Chaba from blinding the little girl. Horrified by what she's done to their children, the parents beat the crap out of Chaba, turning her into the Thai slit-mouthed woman in the process. In a pretty terrifying scene, they hang Chaba for her crimes and we learn that we've been watching a horror movie inside of a horror movie. Despite being a horror film inside of another horror film, this was a decently scary opening scene. Chaba's look and the way she walks makes her a very scary villain. The makeup work looks really good here and seeing the condition of those poor kids makes the scene even scarier. I'm normally not a big fan of movies inside of other movies, but that's essentially the whole premise of Coming Soon and they use it really well. The film crew watches a screening of the horror film called Revengeful Spirit. Despite having worked on the film, the director's assistant named Jeeb seems pretty terrified of it and walks out. She speaks with the director named To, who says he wants to edit Chaba's death scene. We soon find out that Chaba is not only haunting the people in the film, but those who watched the movie as well. Jeeb walks back into an empty theater during Chaba's death scene and hears strange noises around her. The movie cuts out, but we see a silhouette of Chaba being hanged on screen. The assistant turns around with a terrified look and we hear her scream as she is killed off screen. This was a great and scary intro that brilliantly sets up the terrifying premise of this film. Chaba is introduced perfectly as this film's villain and I love the lore surrounding the movie that comes with an unexpected twist at the end. We meet our main character named Shane who works as a projectionist for the movie theater. Shane and another employee named Yod are planning to sell pirated copies of Revengeful Spirit to make a few extra bucks. Shane uses his share of the profit to gamble on fights but has a much more personal reason for what he's doing. His coworker and ex-girlfriend named Sum hates his guts for understandable reasons we'll get to shortly. As she leaves work, she comes across a promotional standee of Chaba as the lights start to go out. The standee starts chasing after her as all the lights go out, leaving her in total darkness. The scare turns out to be false and just a prank that her brother Yod ends up paying the price for.
Hey, Yod!
The group go out for Sam's birthday, all planned by Shane, but it's not enough to get her to talk to him. That night, Shane and Yod illegally record Revengeful Spirit on a camcorder. While Shane listens in on the fights he bet on, we see a flashback of what happened between him and Sam. Shane is a drug addict and pawned Sam's watch to buy drugs. When she confronted him, he smacked her in the head, which is why she's sporting the bandage on her forehead. It is really hard to root for Shane as a main character because I hate domestic violence abusers. Although Shane never really redeems himself for what he did, the rest of the film is him trying really hard to make amends with Sam, starting with trying to buy back her watch. He falls asleep on their illegal operation and goes into the theater to find Yod. All he finds is the knocked over camcorder and something disturbing captured on film. Yod can be seen screaming in fear and trying to get away from an unseen entity. His other unnamed coworker comes in and says that he won all his bets. He asks him to go buy Som's watch back while he goes to check on Yod. He finds Yod's apartment unlocked and Yodless. He sees Chaba's tracks leading into the closet but only finds a bunch of polo shirts inside, meaning that wherever Yod is, he is wearing the exact same pair of pants. A couple of gangsters walk up to Shane asking for the pirated movie and they mean business.
ไปคืนพี่ให้นะกูไม่เอาเงินเว้ย
It's a really difficult situation to be in. Get them an illegal copy of Revengeful Spirit or risk getting the other headlight smashed in. He starts recording the film and notices the same tracks he saw at Yod's apartment. He calls Yod's cell phone and hears it ringing from inside of the theater. The film is playing a creepy scene where Chaba is taking her revenge on the villagers who killed her. In a pretty cool reveal, Shane hears the cell phone ringing inside the film and sees Yod's dead body on the screen. Good thing Shane was illegally recording the film and captured proof that Yod is dead and inside the film, but we're not going to talk about that. This was a pretty nice and creepy reveal that adds another cool supernatural element to this cursed movie. Shane is now being stalked by Chaba and runs out into the dark parking garage. This scene confirms that Shane is now being haunted by Chaba and has a brand new backpack.
Anything that you might need, I got inside for you.
Back at home, his closet is tied shut to hopefully keep Chaba away. He tries calling Som for help, but she ignores him. He hears a sound coming from the bathroom and sees Chaba's trail leading to the shower. He sees Chaba brushing her hair through the shower curtain, but she disappears when he opens it. The scariest thing about this scene is how disgusting that brush looks. Everything else was okay. It was sort of cliche and used a ton of loud dramatic sound effects. For example, here, the dramatic sound effect wasn't really necessary to reveal how disgusting that brush looks. Everything that's happening is clearly affecting Shane mentally. He sees his boss questioning his coworkers about Revengeful Spirit because a print of the film has gone missing. As if Som couldn't spite Shane even more, she lets down a poster of the film showing Chaba, which nearly gives him a heart attack. He takes another look at the camera footage and sees Chaba in one of the frames. He then sees Chaba sitting in the audience of a different movie and goes to investigate. This turns out to be nothing and we get a pretty comical scene out of it. Som notices Shane's odd behavior and sees the illegal taping of the film on the camera. Shane tells her that Yod is dead and that he believes the movie is cursed. A pretty wild statement coming from her drug addict abusive ex-boyfriend. This very brief scene at the box office makes me feel very nostalgic for the times we actually had to buy physical movie tickets. Som tries calling Yod but doesn't get an answer because he's dead. Shane gets back Som's watch with a bonus jump scare to go along with it. I'll score this jump scare because it actually caught me off guard. Shane takes off running into a crowd of people, but it doesn't stop Chaba from scaring the crap out of him. She grabs her mouth and pulls off her jaw in a very gnarly scene. The special effects aren't the best here, but I'm not gonna fault the film for its budget. He runs into the elevator that quickly shuts off once he's inside. Chaba is eerily hanging directly behind him and gives him one last jump scare to top off this great scare scene. This was a really nice scare scene that had a variety of scares in a short amount of time. The highlight of this scene is Chaba quietly hanging in the dark directly behind Shane. The quiet, eerie noise and his reaction make this scene highly effective. The couple jump scares also worked pretty well because they were well timed and executed. This great scare scene causes the appropriate response from Shane of seizing up on the elevator floor in the fetal position. Some comes over to take care of him and we get the traditional 2000s horror movie scene where a character looks things up on the interweb. She reads an article about the crew of the film falling under a curse. We also learn that the events of Revengeful Spirits are based on a true story. A woman named Chaba kidnapped several village children and gouged out their eyes. Chaba previously lost her own children, which caused her to become crazy. Shane has a pretty gory dream about Chaba and his eyes being gouged out before waking up. He has a conversation with Som and she believes everything he says. says. They must find a way to end the curse before Shane becomes consumed by it. They decide to go to the village to find Chaba's house and burn her body. We get yet another staple horror movie scene where the main characters ask the locals for directions. On the way, they see several individuals without eyes, most likely the grown-up victims of Chaba. They find Chaba's old and creepy house, which looks exactly like it did in the film, all except for the hidden door that isn't located behind the closet like in the film. A ceiling fan suddenly falls on top of Shane, causing him to fall through the floorboard and briefly knocks him out. Some tries calling him from above and says that she's going to be right back. Funny. I heard those exact same words 25 years ago, and now I don't really believe people when they say that anymore. Shane comes to and realizes that the basement is the hidden place where Chaba kept the children and where she was hanged. He finds an old picture of the real Chaba and her children, though the top half of her face is missing. Some finds a way to get to him, but she's a little more aggressive than I remember. That's because the real one went to go get a rope, and the person tugging on his arm is Chaba. We get a fairly predictable jump scare that I'll give a point to for the cool makeup work on Sam. The real Sam comes to his rescue and Shane looks rightfully terrified. The scare scene inside Chaba's house was fairly decent. It was mostly cliche and predictable, but the part involving fake Sam was done pretty well. At the hospital, Shane seems to have given up all hope. He shows Sam her watch that broke during his fall along with his left arm. The doctor asks them why they were inside Chaba's house to begin with and reveals that she never actually died. The real Chaba is still alive and being taken care of at a psychiatric facility. He reveals that Chaba was saved by the police just in time before being hanged by the villagers. They go visit Chaba at the facility and see that she is now a harmless old lady who now advocates for peace. He looks at a promotional poster for the film and tells some that the actress portraying Chaba is who he's been seeing the entire time. That picture of Chaba is absolute nightmare fuel. She looks like she's peering right into my soul. That's actually some great promotional material. They head to the headquarters of the film company and thanks to this totally random dude on a bike, learn that nobody has shown up there in over a week. They break into the building and walk right into several promotional posters for the film that look extra creepy. The way the horror movie theme is being incorporated into the film is super cool. I already love all things movies, especially horror. Seeing the movie theater and promotional materials being used as scare pieces puts a huge smile on my face. Sam finds a contact sheet for the film crew but can't reach any of them. She gets an A for effort, but Shane finds a much more important piece of information, a behind-the-scenes video footage of the hanging of Chaba. The actress portraying Chaba was a woman named Ing Chan. The director of the film seemed extremely critical of the way she acted like dying.
แค่ดิ้นให้ตายแค่นี้มึงเล่นไม่ได้วะ
After numerous takes, she gave the director exactly the performance he was looking for. However, a crew member noticed that the harness on the actress was cut and that she was actually dying. Once everybody noticed, the crew members rushed over to help, but it was too late. The movie's curse is actually unrelated to Chaba and her story and was actually created by the accidental death of the actress. I believe that the actress took so much verbal abuse from the director that she cut the wire off the harness herself to give him what he wanted. If I could describe this scene with one word, it would be chilling. Seeing the actress quietly hang from the rope and the realization that the wire was actually cut was pretty brilliant. The final shot of her face and the moment the curse was born is horrifying. Shane realizes that whoever watches the film is doomed, just like the entire film crew and Yod. He gives her the broken watch and rides off with no actual plan. He also gives her one last shove before taking off. Back at the theater, the two gangsters are waiting for him. He takes off on them and burns the film reels of revengeful spirit. He soon finds himself stuck in a time loop and unable to destroy the copies of the film. Shane uses his knowledge of the future to get a jump on the gangster and beat the crap out of him. Shane is a pretty violent person. The gangster suddenly turns into a standee of Ing Chan and then into a jump scare. He takes off into a room with several monitors and all the screens start showing Ing Chan's death. He finds himself in the theater lobby, which is extremely creepy without any lights on. The spirit plays more visual tricks on him by making him think that Sam walked into the theater. The real Sam arrives and sees him walk inside but is unable to go after him. The screening is showing Ing Chan's death scene with a terrifying twist. Ing Ink-chan quietly walks up behind him in a super tense moment. She then suddenly grabs a hold of him courtesy of a jump scare and asks if he really wants to see her die. Ink-chan's spirit is clearly enraged from the treatment she received at the hands of the director, which led to her death and turned her into a revengeful spirit. She has taken method acting to a whole new level. She chases him down the hall laughing like a hysterical maniac, and he suddenly finds himself inside the film. At the dinner table, he finds the entire production crew dead along with his friend Yod, whose glasses weren't rated to protect from eye gouging. Som walks in, sees Shane in the movie, and realizes that he's not going to get much screen time. Ink-chan's hands slowly wrap around his face, and Som is forced to look at it! As Shane gets his eyes gouged out. Som cries on her knees in the middle of the theater, realizing that yet another unstoppable Asian horror movie curse has been created. While waiting for the end credits, this jump scare actually scared the crap out of me. We see hundreds of moviegoers in the movie theater buying tickets to see Revengeful Spirit. In the film's final scene, we see a full house to the showing of Revengeful Spirit. We see Som has tragically fell victim to the curse and that the entire audience in the theater is next as the movie ends. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was Coming Soon. My friends, this film had just about everything I love about horror films. The setting and atmosphere created by the horror film inside of a horror film premise was excellent. The film started out pretty generic and cliche, but managed to create some very tense and creative scares. The plot twist surrounding the curse was very well done, and I didn't see it coming. It's not the perfect horror film, but it accomplishes exactly what it set out to do, and it doesn't take itself too seriously. There were more jump scares than I normally like in horror films, but some of them were done quite well. However, the scare scenes here are at their best when they rely on the tension and atmosphere created by the film's excellent setting and premise, earning Coming Soon a very good scare score of 74%. The scariest scene in the film was a toss-up between the elevator scene and the revelation of Ink-chan's death. Both scenes are full of tension, but Ink-chan's death is so much more disturbing. The shock comes from both learning what truly happened and seeing the horrifying look on Ink-chan's face as she turns into the revengeful spirit. But as always, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Thank you all for tuning in, and I cannot wait to see y'all right back here in the horror mine. Y'all stick around.